this is a relatively new idea. Most of the work we do in the Imaginative Education Research Group is designed to engage kids' imaginations in learning and their emotions in learning. And this is a very, relative to most of the other work we do, a slightly odd project. It's only about 3 years old, so it's a new and very particular kind of project. And I'm not sure how to introduce it, so I won't. I'll just launch into it and see what you make of it. It's a bit odd, but I'm told you're a kind group and it won't be too hard on me. One of the problems we all deal with, I guess, in education is in some way that kids coming out of schools often they know, well, not a huge amount of what they've actually been taught over the previous 12 years, typically. And what they do know, they tend to know rather superficially. And at the same time, if you look at the kinds of criteria, nearly all the big educational thinkers, from Plato on, have suggested for criteria for being educated. There are two typically. One, that people have a breadth of knowledge, that is, they know about the world around them, how it got this way. They have exposure to the arts, that sort of sense of what we generally fill the curriculum with. But also they want to suggest that a necessary criterion for being an educated person is that you know something in depth. Because if you don't learn something in depth, you never actually learn something about the nature of knowledge itself. And you never, in some ways, learn to distinguish a knowledge claim from an opinion. I was once in New York and a taxi driver said, "It is my opinion, and it is very true, that..." There's a category problem here, anyway. But that sense that kids remain vulnerable to all kinds of rather loony claims about the world if they don't begin to understand something about the nature of knowledge. So this is about how we can ensure that all children gain expertise of a kind and a degree that has never been the case in the past in schools, he says optimistically. At the moment we provide breadth for all and depth hardly for anybody. Now this is the quickie overview. It's dead simple. It's the simplest possible program. In the first week or so of schooling, each child is assigned a topic that they will learn about for the rest of the 12 years of their schooling. That's easy. So there are topics like apples, cats, the circus, railroads, etc. So the students then create a portfolio over the 12 years on their particular topic. And they work with their teachers who give them support and help and guidance. They don't teach them about it. It's just something that they help the students build for themselves. And they have the opportunity each year to make some kind of presentation on what they're learning. That's it. Okay, I can stop now. So that's the project. It's a very simple one that we add a small item to the curriculum. Nothing else changes. We continue doing everything else in school as we do at the moment. It's just that we add the small element that students have a portfolio on a topic that they gradually learn more and more about during the years of their schooling. So if we take Sarah, who is going to learn about apples, what we suggest first is that we have a ceremony in which this happens. I was just at some schools in Oregon that have been using this, and it was quite touching to see that the kids had these rather attractive medals on ribbons, and they had their name and their topic on them, and then they were given a portfolio, a little binder basically, with their name and again the topic name, and lid kids written on the side of the lid being learning in depth. And each kid was just, walking around with their portfolio and gradually adding to it at particular times in the day and at home. And it's not something they do in the school most of the time, but the school is where it happens. So we have a ceremony. And it's important, I think, that it be clear to the children that this is a big deal. They're going to learn today what it is they are going to become an expert on. And over the years, Sarah meets regularly with the teachers and explores resources with her parents, the old guy down the hall, whoever happens to know about it. Some of the schools have started giving the kids at the beginning little mini clipboards, and they wander around asking adults what they know about or what they would like to know about, apples in this case, or the circus, or dust, or whatever it might be. and they build up a set of questions they can explore, and they can work with the other kids. One of the things that's been rather touching about this is that as kids have been working on it and reading things outside or watching television shows, they are coming in rapidly and saying to their friend, "Oh, I saw I've got this thing on cats. You're doing cats. Would you like to use this in some way?" So it's been a nice way in which we see things shared. It's also, if you imagine this running for 3 or 4 years in a school and you have maybe 100 different topics, it means that in grade 3, grade 10, there will be kids with the same topic as the younger kids. So they can work together and they can put together a Facebook on apples or whatever it might be that they can collaborate and share what they're learning. And she looks at very many different contexts and dimensions of apples. She'll learn about the fact there are about 7,200 varieties, and they all originated, all the apples, the sweet apples that we enjoy today, originated from a strand of trees that are still there actually in Kazakhstan. Not the same trees, but the same set of trees. Though there's a blight on the leaves at the moment, so if you want to do something, people are getting quite concerned about the origins of all our apples. These trees are in some danger at the moment. Not that it will make any difference to the rest of the trees, but it's of some importance that we should. They'll learn some physics about apples and poetry and literature. Sarah will learn about Yeats's the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun, and she'll learn about health and genetics, ecology, art, etc., etc. And she explores it in many different ways, obviously field work, library, all the usual things that we do. And over the years, Sarah will gain sufficient depth and knowledge about her topic to make it her own, and she will become an expert. And she'll also learn something about the nature of learning itself. Sorry about these. Now, one of the potential problems with this is that not every topic will do, obviously, so we have to have a set of criteria for what will count as an adequate topic to carry the child's mind through 12 years of varied kinds of study of that topic. And one is, of course, that it has itself within it sufficient breadth and sufficient depth. It has what I call here multi-dimensional richness. That is, it has to be tied in some way with our cultural lives and our emotional lives. It has to be tie in some way with human history. So apples is a good topic because it has, this long history of growing with us from these first apples in Kazakhstan 4,000 years ago. The Romans had developed about 20 varieties, and doing a map of how they have grown gives you a sense of how they're interwoven with human experience in many dimensions. So the topics mustn't be concerned with materials that will lead to depression or violence. I was thinking if a nice topic would be tools, and then I thought of weapons. And then it didn't seem a good idea to have kids working for 12 years studying how they hack people to pieces and kill and maim, etc. And not too technical. I thought, it'd be nice to have somebody studying medieval Persian pottery or the rings of Saturn. But many of the topics require too much technical information up front that you can't really expect a young child to start and get engaged with it. And that the topics not be too general, and again, not too particular. So something like animals probably has too much variety in it. Tigers is maybe a bit too particular, but cats would be just the right kind of scale for this. And another criterion is that there must be adequate local materials available for the kid to get into it in the early years. This grew out of a guy in Romania looking at some of the lists of topics we had and saying, well, fish may be okay for the west coast of Canada, but let me tell you about Romania and the fish. There's just not enough, he felt, experiential stuff locally for the kids to get involved with. So, but I don't know what you think of that. I mean, it's a slightly unusual kind of thing to be doing in school. And what I'll mostly want to do is discuss it with you. I'll talk a little bit about what's happening at the moment, but mainly I'm interested in hearing your comments and objections and abuse, and we'll see how we can go from there. But some of the questions that usually come up initially we can deal with relatively straightforward. One is that students will get bored. They'll get bored with studying apples for 12 years. And the answer is that boredom is a product of ignorance, not knowledge. The more you know about something, the more interesting it becomes. And indeed, our experience so far, 2 years' experience, no child has wanted to give up the topic that they've been given. But we'll come to that. Students should be given a choice in the topic, which is usually as part of our... we give children choice in schools about things we think are insignificant and trivial. We don't give them a choice about things we think are important. We're going the French Revolution today. Anybody not want to do the French Revolution? We just tend... And there are a number of other reasons why I think it's appropriate that the topics be assigned. We have found that within 2 or 3 weeks, there is no discernible difference among the children who are given a choice in the topic and the children who have it randomly assigned. They all make very rapidly a strong commitment to their topic. As soon as they start learning, it's theirs. Okay. But we can compromise on that one. School administrators may think, look, this is just too complicated to organize. Kids are moving around all the time. How the hell? What do you do? Do they take these portfolio things with them? And where are they kept? It's just too much confusion. And I must admit, I tended to think that myself, that it would be just a little... It's not a topic. Schools are designed in ways that think about knowledge differently from what is foundational to this project. So it doesn't fit necessarily so easily. So far, we're not finding that's a problem. School librarians, and I thought particularly in elementary schools this could be a problem if it starts in grade 1. We have a lot of people starting in grade 6, grade 10. I mean, it's all over the place now. But I just thought there wouldn't be time in the curriculum. How do you do this? We're already, pushed to cover a range of things that are supposed to happen in schools. But in fact, every school that started it, they're finding, a lot of the schools say, well, we've got this thing called exploration time, and the kids are, using that, or we're finding a bit of time at, this. So it has not been a problem yet in any of the schools that have started doing it. It's impossible to grade these portfolios. Well, that's easy. It won't be graded. In fact, oddly, this will be one of the few non-coerced kinds of learning that goes on in schools. Nearly everything else we have children do is coerced in some way. We test it, examine it, find out how the kids are doing, grade them, etc. This will be something that is driven by the student's interest. The teacher doesn't guide them and tell them where to go. The student decides what they want to do next. The teacher's there only to support and help the student and elaborate their portfolio. And it will be entirely voluntary. If the kids want to drop out, they can drop out. If they want to drop out for 6 months, they can drop out for 6 months, etc. No child yet has dropped out. Of course, we shoot them if they do, but now another one here is it won't get teacher buy-in. But oddly, some of the teachers, quite a number of the teachers I presented this to in the last little while, one teacher said, look, this is what I got into teaching for. I'm working with kids. It's ungraded. We're exploring together. In fact, a number of the teachers, there's a group in Melbourne Ladies Grammar School. No, Melbourne Ladies Methodist College, sorry, in Melbourne, strangely. And the teachers found that the kids were having such a good time, they all took on a topic themselves as well. So they're also building portfolios. It just means they watch a bit less television and spend a bit less time on Facebook, and they claim they're actually having some fun. But so it doesn't seem to be a problem. Many of the teachers have also said that they really would like to do this, but the administrators will never go for it. When we talk to the administrators, they say, hey, this is terrific, we'd love to do this, and value added for the school, it's not going to cost much, it's fairly easy to fit into the set of stuff we're doing at the moment, but the teachers will never go for it. So they can't both be right. Oh, well, maybe they are. So far, we haven't found either of those to be too much of a problem. I should mention, the project grew out of... I wrote a book about 3 years ago, it came out, called The Future of Education. And the last half of the book is a history of education from 2010 to 2060. So if you want to know what's going to happen... but the trouble with writing a book like that is you have to invent stuff. You have to create programs and things. So this was just one of them, and I had a class, and I just was talking about this particular program that was going to kick in 2030 or whatever it was. And two of the teachers decided they would give it a try in their schools, and one is in Victoria and another in Langley in British Columbia. And the woman in Langley, she said, all her fellow teachers thought she was mad. Why would she take on something else on top of everything else? So that was, and she started, both of these people started in the September of 2009. No, that's wrong, 2008. This 2009 in the Langley School, there are 6 teachers doing it, because they have seen what has happened with the one class, and just found it so fantastic there. And in Victoria, the guy who did it, he was doing it for 1 year, and then the kids made him making arrangements with the teacher in the following year to enable them to continue with the project. And there's another class as well started in the same school. So that we had in the first year, there were about, I suppose, 30 kids doing it. This year there's about 2,000 kids in Japan, Australia, England, Wales, Japan, I mentioned Japan, Romania, etc. So and Canada, strangely, and a number in the US. So a lot of people are oddly finding it works surprisingly dramatically well. I think what has been, one of the teachers who was involved said she has never had conversations with her kids of the kind that she's having now with the LID kids who are working on these projects. I got an email from a guy in Texas saying, "What are you doing to my daughter?" I'm sorry, their accent's a bit strange there. But, "What are you doing to my daughter?" Sorry. And he said, "Look, she wants me to go and buy some birds. She wants me to buy a couple of birds over the summer so she can study them, and then we'll release them, at the end of the summer." And a number of parents, not complaining, but saying that the kids have been so engaged that they are continuing working on their projects through the summer, because finally they've got more time to be able to work on their portfolios. So there's something slightly odd. Now, this is not every kid, obviously, and some, who knows. But there's been a degree of enthusiasm for totally unforced learning that has surprised many people involved in the formal administration of education. So we did a very small research project in that we only had 2 classes when we started this, just to see what was going on. And one of the things that was clear, that the kids were engaged in their LID project, both in and outside of the school, and they were connecting it to work they were doing in the regular class. So that so you can imagine if Sarah has been studying apples for 6 years, and you're teaching about Peru in grade 6 or 7, and you obviously have a fantastic resource. What's going on with apples in Peru? How about ants? And all the other topics. What are the railways like? So you have already building usable in all other curriculum areas a degree of expertise that would be unique in schooling. That is, the kids will become the experts on something, which again is unique, that we expect the teachers always to know more about topics than the kids.